Hi, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Shelby and welcome to Shelby Reads. I'm a femme lesbian who's been with my wonderful butch wife for almost 13 years and we've been married almost for 6. Yay, us. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to hear more about Sapphic books, LGBT books, lesbian books, all kinds of books that are in the LGBT, but mostly Sapphic. Today I'm going to be talking about my reading wrap-up for September 2025. I read 9 books this month, bringing me up to 76 out of my 100 book goal for the year. I'm on track. I'm a little ahead, I think. Let's get into it. The first book I finished in September was The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharpe. This is a YA mystery, a little bit thrillery, a slick, twisty YA page-turner about the daughter of a con artist who is taken hostage in a bank heist. Nora O'Malley's been a lot of girls. As the daughter of a con artist who targets criminal men, she grew up as her mother's protege. But when her mom fell for the mark, instead of conning him, Nora pulled the ultimate con: escape. For 5 years, Nora has been playing at normal, but she needs to dust off the skills she ditched because she has 3 problems. Number 1, her ex walked in on her with her girlfriend. Even though they're all friends, Wes didn't know about her and Iris. Number 2, the morning after Wes finds them kissing, they all have to meet to deposit the fundraiser money they raised at the bank. It's a nightmare that goes from awkward to deadly because, number 3, right after they enter the bank, 2 guys start robbing it. The bank robbers may be trouble, but Nora's something else entirely. They have no idea who they're really holding hostage, ... I read this for my Sapphic book club. I went into this not knowing anything about it, and I was like very pleasantly surprised. It was a really fun time. It had so many twists and turns. I really enjoyed that about it. I was surprised how many swears they got away with, considering this is YA. I don't know if there are new YA rules or whatever, but like, I feel like this is almost a record number of swears in a YA book. I really liked the endometriosis rep in this book. I had stage 4 endometriosis before I eventually had to get everything just like removed. So it's nice to see it because you don't see it too often in books, especially like LGBT rep. I was really excited about that. It also dealt with some pretty serious topics really well, and I would highly suggest that anyone check the trigger warnings before they read this one, but still a really good time. I had a really good time. I give it 4 out of 5 stars on Storygraph. The second book I read was Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. It is an adult contemporary book. With her newly completed PhD in astronomy in hand, 28-year-old Grace Porter goes on a girls' trip to Vegas to celebrate. She's a straight A, work through the summer certified high achiever. She is not the kind of person who goes to Vegas and gets drunkenly married to a woman whose name she doesn't know, ... until she does exactly that. This one moment of departure from her stern ex-military father's plans for her life has Grace wondering why she doesn't feel more fulfilled from completing her degree. Staggering under the weight of her parents' expectations, a struggling job market, feelings of burnout, Grace flees her home in Portland for a summer in New York with the wife she barely knows. In New York, she's able to ignore all the constant questions about her future plans and falls hard for her creative and beautiful wife, Yuki Yamamoto. But when reality comes crashing in, Grace must face what she's been running from all along. The fears that make us human, the family scars that need to heal, and the longing for connection, especially when navigating the messiness of adulthood. I didn't know much about this book either going in, but I really related to it, and I absolutely loved it. I love seeing someone who is crashing and burning after college, because even though you think you can just get into a certain field or job after college, there are actually a lot of barriers that you oftentimes didn't think as hard about, or that you were hoping you could just kind of bash through. And the main character had even more barriers than I did because she is a black lesbian. The romance element was actually really cute and sweet despite it being a little bit insta-lovey, but I didn't really mind it in this one scenario because the book was really well written. This book made me cry, and I haven't cried since I read The Persistent Desire, a Femme Butch Reader, and then the book I cried at before that had been since like Harrow the Ninth. That being said, I don't know who I could recommend this book to because it was emotionally devastating. I gave it 5 out of 5 on Storygraph, no notes. The third book I read was Cursed Slumber by Luna Lockhart. It was a dark romance novella and a Sleeping Beauty retelling. I was supposed to wake her, not fall into her nightmare. Aurora Sinclair had been cursed, left in an enchanted sleep for a century. The legends called her a victim, a fragile princess trapped in a prison of endless dreams. Breaking curses was my job. Her prince in the form of a demon-fighting woman with one simple mission. One kiss, one moment, one curse broken. Instead, the second my lips touched hers, the world shattered. I didn't wake Aurora, I woke something else. Now I'm trapped inside her nightmare, a twisted, shifting realm of shadows and whispers, where nothing is real except the hunger in her golden eyes and the darkness curling at her fingertips. Aurora wasn't just a girl lost in sleep. She was a queen in her own right, a villain shaped by a century of torment. And she wants retribution. The worst part, I think I want it too. If I was meant to save her, why does it feel so good to fall? One kiss bound me to her forever. Now there's no going back. A dark, spicy, Sapphic retelling of Sleeping Beauty, where salvation tastes like sin and happily ever afters are written in blood. Perfect for fans of a seductive villainess, a morally gray heroine, dreamscape horror, and gothic fantasy romance with an edge of madness. I have a full rant review on this one. If you really want to watch it, go click that button. It was a fun time. I truly hated this book and I ended up giving it 1 star. It has no redeeming qualities. The author says that there is CNC in there. There is no CNC at all in this entire book. It's just rape. There were a million similes and descriptions about the air changing. I think it had some interesting ideas, but it executed none of them well. The 4th book I read is A Ballad for Slayers and Monsters by Rita A. Rubin. It is an adult fantasy book. Cass of Veldenier is a slayer, a traveling monster, hunter for hire. Claudia of Trulio is half human, half vampiric, half monster. They should be nothing more than enemies, but when the long-lost remnant of the dragon Umbral turns up, and with it the possibility of unleashing the dragons to wreak havoc on Viltresser, as they did long ago, Cass and Claudia's paths converge. Through a shared desire to keep the dragons from returning, they embark on a quest to see the remnant destroyed. Along the way, they will encounter fearsome monsters as well as a burgeoning desire for each other. Can a monster and a monster slayer truly find love together? Pursuing them from the shadows is Cerisa, a vampiric who wishes to see the world burn, and she will need the remnant to make that wish a reality. Was this the most amazing book ever? No. I think it needed to be longer so it could have fleshed out some of the story elements. I think this could have actually been better as like a trilogy or something like that, because then we could have done everything we wanted to do and everything we needed to do. But this book gets major bonus points from me because none of the main characters in this book are men at all. It was really fun to read a fantasy that had nothing to do with men. There were no men, at least as main characters. There were a couple here and there, but I also loved the romance between Cass and Claudia. I don't think that the author rushed it at all, which is definitely one of the finer points of this book. I think she did a really good job with the romance. And I loved having a butch main character. I loved that the villain of the story, Cerisa, was also gay. And I loved that on the cover you can barely see her, but there is a cat girl who starts following them around, and she is trans and she's actually important to the story. She actually has her own character development. I had a pretty great time reading this overall, and I mean, just like, look at this art though. Are you kidding? I don't think you can see it well, but like and on the inside is like so cute. Look how cute that is. Oh my goodness. Only butches can make me swoon like this. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. There was definitely room for some improvement, but I still had a really good time. The 5th book I read was Off With Her Head by Dana LeeAnn. It is a dark fantasy romance and an Alice in Wonderland retelling. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most ruthless of them all? Queen Scarlet rules Underland through fear and deadly proclamations. Her infamous Off With Their Heads maintains an iron grip on her magical kingdom. Across the border in Darkmoor, Queen Ravina wields blood magic in solitude, trusting only her prophetic mirror after her sister's betrayal nearly cost her life. When rumors of war threaten both kingdoms, these rival queens are forced into an uneasy alliance. But as they work together to counter the mounting danger, their mutual trust begins to dissolve into something far more dangerous: attraction. Now, Ravina's sister Mara has emerged from the shadows with an army at her back and vengeance in her heart. As magical creatures choose sides and kingdoms hang in the balance, Scarlet and Ravina must decide if they can trust each other with not only their crowns, but their hearts. The mirror's prophecy is clear. In the coming battle, one queen must fall. I am going to have a whole rant review coming out about this one. Also, it's going to be coming out next week, so please keep your eyes out for that. Click that little bell notification if you want to hear about it. But the dark elements of this dark romance fell off really quickly, and there weren't really any consequences to the Queen of Hearts beheading people consistently in the beginning portion of the book. Not only that, but the magic system does not make any sense. And it's also marketed as enemies to lovers, but it is insta-love. I found myself rooting for the villain because at least she was trying to do something original. I felt that there were some really good ideas, but that none of them were executed well. Again, I'm gonna have a rant review going up next week, so keep your eyes out for that. I gave this book 2.25 stars out of 5 on Storygraph. It wasn't for me. The 6th book I read was What Moves the Dead by T.Kingfisher. It is a horror novella. Oh, and it is a Fall of the House of Usher retelling. When Alex Easton, a retired soldier, receives word that their childhood friend Madeline Usher is dying, they race to the ancestral home of the Ushers in the remote countryside of Ruritania. What they find there is a nightmare of fungal growths and possessed wildlife surrounding a dark, pulsing lake. Madeline sleepwalks and speaks in strange voices at night, and her brother Roderick is consumed with a mysterious malady of the nerves. Aided by a redoubtable British mycologist and a baffled American doctor, Alex must unravel the secret of the House of Usher before it consumes them all. Again, this is a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's Fall of the House of Usher, which I'm a big Edgar Allan Poe fan. I was, especially in high school and college. It was so creative and gross, and I had a really hard time putting it down. It's only 166 pages, so it's a very fast read anyway. I added the next 2 books to my TBR because they hadn't been on there because I didn't know if I was gonna like this. I cannot think of anything that would make this book better in my eyes. It had like great representation. It had great story elements that made it original and different. There were a lot of world building aspects that I really appreciated. If you want a quick horror to catch up on your TBR with, I would highly recommend this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The 7th book I read was The Black Queen by Jumata Emill. It is a YA mystery / thriller. We're trying to get into the spooky season now. Even though I don't normally mood read, we're doing it. Nova Albright was going to be the first black homecoming queen at Love It High, but now she's dead, murdered on coronation night. Fans of One of Us is Lying and the other black girl will love this unput-downable thriller. Nova Albright, the first black homecoming queen at Love It High, is dead, murdered the night of her coronation. Her body found the next morning in the old slave cemetery she spent her weekends rehabilitating. Tinsley MacArthur was supposed to be queen. Not only is she beautiful, wealthy, and white, it's her legacy. Her grandmother, her mother, and even her sister wore the crown before her. Everyone in Love It knows Tinsley would do anything to carry on the MacArthur tradition. No one is more certain of that than Duchess Simmons, Nova's best friend. Duchess's father is the first black police captain in Love It. For Duchess, Nova's crown was more than just a win for Nova. It was a win for all the black kids. Now her best friend is dead, that the main suspect is right in front of him. Duchess is convinced that Tinsley killed Nova, and that Tinsley is privileged enough to think she can get away with it. But Duchess's father seems to be doing what he always does, fall behind the blue line, which means that the white girl is going to walk. Duchess is determined to prove Tinsley's guilt, and to do that, she'll have to get close to her. But Tinsley has an agenda too. Everyone loved Nova, and sometimes love is exactly what gets you killed. This book is so underrated, I'm not even kidding. The mystery of who killed Nova kept me guessing the entire time to try and figure out who was responsible. This book made me feel for a lot of characters, and I could feel how devastating the loss of Nova was for their community and how much it affected individual people. There was so much about racism and classism and how that affected these characters, including Tinsley, who is much more privileged and often racist without necessarily thinking of herself that way. It was one of the best books I read all year, and I really don't want to spoil anything about the mystery, so you should really just go read it. It was so good. Go pick it up right now. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The 8th book I read was The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. It is an adult historical fantasy horror novel. We have a lot going on in the genre. Imar Castle has been under siege for 6 months. Food is running low, and there has been no sign of rescue. Just as the survivors consider deliberately thinning their number, the castle stores are replenished, the sick are healed, and the divine figures of the Constant Lady and her saints have arrived, despite the barricaded gates, offering succor in return for adoration. Soon, the entire castle is under the sway of their saviors, partaking in intoxicating feasts of terrible origin. While the war hero Servan gives her allegiance to the Constant Lady, Fossin, a disorganized, paranoid nun-turned-sorceress, races to unravel the mystery of these new visitors and exonerate her experiments as their source. And in the bowels of the castle, a serving girl, Trella, is torn between her thirst for a secret vengeance against Vaughn and the desperate need to escape from the horrors that are unfolding within Imar's walls. As the castle descends into bacchanalian madness, forgetting the massed army beyond its walls in favor of hedonistic ecstasy, these 3 women are the only ones to still see their situation for what it is, but they are not immune from the temptations of the castle's new masters, or each other, and their shifting alliances and entangled paths bring violence to the surface. To save the castle and themselves will take a reimagining of who they are and a reorganization of the very world itself. This is genuinely one of the best books I've ever read in my lifetime. I'm not kidding. I'm dead serious. This is a 6-star read for me, and I'm pressuring my wife and my book club into reading it because I have no one to talk about this book with. The plot is literally insane. I felt like a Victorian woman who was scandalized by seeing an ankle the entire time, and there was no sex. I loved every minute of it. There was a ton of body horror, but for me, the real horror element was that there was some spelunking scenes, and spelunking is horrifying to me. If you don't know what that is, that's where you get in like caves and then in like really tight spaces, and like it's where a ton of people die being basically crushed by the rocks between them, or from hypothermia usually. I have a phobia of that, but it is so nice to actually be freaked out by a horror book for once. I am so desensitized to them overwhelmingly, so I really enjoyed it. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Genuinely one of the best books that I have read in a very long time. It was kind of disappointing to start reading other stuff after it. The 9th and final book I read was My Carmilla, a Sapphic Vampire Romance by Anita Zara. It is a romance book. In the decaying grandeur of the Schloss, Laura drowns in loneliness, but fate arrives with a carriage crash, delivering the enigmatic Carmilla to her doorstep. Their connection is instant, a wildfire scorching through the desolate halls. Stolen torches blossom into forbidden nights, and a hunger awakens within Laura, a hunger mirrored in Carmilla's gaze. As desire consumes them, a dark truth seeps through the cracks in their stolen paradise. A string of unexplained illnesses plagues the village's young women. Laura is forced to confront a horrifying... What? Yeah, this sentence doesn't work, that's why. Laura is forced to confront a horrifying... Then there's nothing else. I'm assuming it is truth. And then the woman she loves may be the very monster stealing the lifeblood of their world. Torn between love and fear, Laura must make a choice. Can she surrender to a love that burns brighter than eternity itself, even if it damns her soul? Indulge in a decadent gothic tale where sapphic seduction meets insatiable desire, this novella, a lyrical reimagining of the classic Carmilla, unveils a love story as dark and thrilling as the blood that binds them. I'm actually going to be doing a Carmilla comparison video of Carmilla retellings in October, so please keep your eyes out for that. I'm very excited to do it. Carmilla is my favorite classic book, except for maybe... It goes definitely Carmilla, and then the next two is between Frankenstein and Wuthering Heights. This book was really interesting to me because it decided to do Carmilla in the exact same time period, the exact same idea, except it makes the men and homophobia the villains, which was a choice to be sure. I'm going to be talking about it more in my comparison video, but I feel like the only villain in the actual original Carmilla book is the repression that was Victorian sexuality. And Victorian repression of sexuality is actually kind of one of the reasons why romantic friendships, which was kind of like the really gay, they're probably secretly gay, like friendships of the time period before this kind of went out of fashion, is because romantically and passionately declaring your love for anyone was kind of seen as icky by like the UK. To me, it felt like this book was them reimagining Carmilla, but fundamentally misunderstanding it, and also being like, but what if there was sex in it? I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars. I really didn't enjoy it. So I read 9 books in September, which was 2,601 pages. That number was so close to 24601. Have you guys seen that like gay guy who does Hugh Jackman impressions? So funny to me. Once there was a way. I had a little giggle while writing this just because that number came up, and I was like, oh my god, Jean Valjean, is that you? So all of these books were fiction and all of them were LGBT+. My average rating was 3.75 stars. There were some absolute winners this month, but there were also some duds. In the comments, please tell me what you read in September and what you loved. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It really helps the channel. We're creeping towards 100, yay. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!